this computer. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bet Right Sports Betting Podcast presented by the Six Pack Coverage Media Network. It's your host, Jeff Farrell, here with my lovely co-host under the brown paper bag from our bet last week, Dave Varel. Unfortunately, my usual co-host, Andrew Tanzi, has decided to take his bye week of the season on the biggest stage that there is, the Super Bowl, so he will not be joining us today. We do wish Rue all the best, and he will be back on the podcast next year when we are back for next season. We made it through the entire regular season. The big game is here, from our first division breakdown podcast in early July all the way to the Super Bowl Sunday coming up in a few days. Dave, how you feeling? Is it a bittersweet time for you because the NFL is going to be gone for 6 months? You excited that the Super Bowl is here? What are you feeling?
It's definitely bittersweet. I mean, NFL seasons are the best time of the year. I have to say right now, I'm feeling a little bit lonely where my team, the Philadelphia Eagles, is going to the Super Bowl on Sunday, yet here I am with a bag over my head like I'm the 0-16 Lions or the Browns. So feeling a little bit lonely over here. Didn't expect to find myself in this position, but that's what we get when Patrick Mahomes takes it to the Bengals last week. I'm still very excited for this game. I think it's going to be an awesome matchup. It's the one that we all wanted to see.
For anyone out there that listened last week, this is what happens when you pass up on the greatest betting opportunity of Patrick Mahomes' playoff career. You find yourself probably living on the street homeless with a paper bag over your head because you missed out on chances of boatloads of money betting on the Chiefs last week.
It was an unfortunate ending to that game because even, the ref stuff aside, the Bengals it was a tie game with 14 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Each team had multiple opportunities to put up points before that final drive. So, it was right there for the taking for Burrow and the Bengals. They weren't able to bring it home. So here I am finding myself with this bag.
It was a classic Bengals-Chiefs game. The Chiefs went out to a lead. The Bengals came back. It felt like they were going to take another one at the end, but the penalty at the end sealed it for the Chiefs. And I will permit you to take the bag off your head now as we dive into the recap from last week.
Oh, thank goodness.
If you would like to. If you want to keep it on, that's on you. Favorite bets of the week. Rue took a loss on Ja'Marr Chase over 82.5 receiving yards. Turned out to be a T. Higgins game. Chase finished with 6 for 75, so he drops to 10-10 on the year and will finish with a nice even record. I jump up to 10-9, one game over 500, Chiefs +1. Talked enough about that. And you had a nice win on the Eagles first half, -1.5. Obviously aided by Brock Purdy, Josh Johnson, and a whole slew of injuries there. But I think that one was probably going to come home anyway. So you're now 3-1 on the show with your best bets.
Oh, yeah.
Long shots of the week did not go well for any of us. Rue had a Ja'Marr Chase 100 yards and a touchdown. That didn't come home. And me and you both had A.J. Brown in a variety of ways. Unfortunately, he had one bomb that he had the defender beat by a step.
The chance was there.
Yeah. Hurts just missed them, and the rest of the game was basically just spent running out the clock because the game was a joke after the first quarter. So,
yeah, props were a little disappointing again. I mean, a lot of that stuff in the Eagles games, there were opportunities. The Miles Sanders sort of buy low spot on his number, and it's there for the taking. But the Eagles are blowing these teams out up until this point, so it's been really hard to predict where the production is going to come from, and then if it does come, how sustainable is it for the second half of this game, depending on how much they're up by. So hopefully, we'll get a lot better performance in a more even matchup.
Yes. Will the Chiefs finally be the team that can keep pace with the Eagles and give them a reasonable game? Because we haven't seen that much this year. Heroes and zeros of the week. My hero of the week last week, I went with none other than Patrick Mahomes. I think we've talked about it enough. Finished 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I don't know if you heard, he actually did that on a sprained ankle, in case you weren't aware. The game-winning 5-yard scramble aided by a late hit out of bounds by the moron Bengals defender that set them up for the game-winning field goal. Patrick Mahomes, hero of the week.
Alleged high ankle sprain.
Oh, so now you're saying it's a legend. Now you're saying maybe he didn't have a high ankle sprain after all, but last week it's like, oh, he might not even play. His ankle's going to fall off.
Moving on. My hero of the week was Haason Reddick. Guy was just all over the field. He had the strip sack early on that took Purdy out of the game, and then he had that fumble recovery on the botch snap by Josh Johnson, turned what was a 14-7 game after the Niners had just scored into 21-7 going into the half. I think that really changed the tide. The Niners are going down, coming out of the second half, down 14 with another backup quarterback in there. That was a deficit they weren't going to overcome. So Haason Reddick just all over the field against the Niners and really changed the whole outcome of that game.
Yeah, I found it really interesting. I feel like all the people that have been hating, that they're still hating on the Eagles, saying that they haven't played anyone. Oh, they got so lucky in the NFC Championship game because of Purdy's injury. And like, yes, it was kind of a freak thing, but like nobody ever seems to mention the fact that he was only injured because Hassan Reddick beat a backup tight end off the edge and then destroyed him on the hit. Like, how about if you blocked the guy? If the Eagles' defensive line wasn't so good, maybe they would have went against Brock Purdy the whole game. So like, no one ever wants to give them any credit. So just, oh, it was so lucky that Purdy got hurt. Like, they caused the injury. It wasn't like a freak play.
Yeah, there's only so many games out of this year we can keep making excuses for the Eagles playing a weak schedule. This guy got hurt, that guy got hurt.
Maybe they just look the opponent, make the opponent look so bad, and that's why they seem like it's an easy schedule.
Yeah, even if it is a soft schedule, they're blowing these teams out. They're not close games. I mean, they're putting everyone right in the ground all over the field. So I don't know what other excuse you really can continue making against this Eagles team.
I don't know, but I'm still hearing more of them this week on people betting on the Chiefs. Zero of the week. I didn't really have any great ones. Last week was a pretty decent week betting for me. I went with the refs, even though, I mean, they kind of won me the game at the end of the Chiefs Bengals, but I also felt robbed as just an NFL fan. I felt like we deserved overtime, or at least to see some sort of a legitimate ending in that game, which was really a pretty great game. And then was kind of just ended on a play that shouldn't have ended the game. So, with the refs. What do you have?
Yeah, I had the refs initially in terms of like the Chiefs with the 5th down, the bad intentional grounding.
I forgot about all that stuff. Oh my God.
Away. So that did affect the game, but the Bengals were able to overcome all of that, and it didn't really matter in the end. Like, they had chances to still win that. So yeah. I went my zero of the week with the Cincinnati mayor. I hate when the mayor or these other guys outside the field come out, and he made this entire, I assume you saw it, entire minute video about Burrowhead Stadium before the AFC Championship game, talking about Joe Burrow being Patrick Mahomes' daddy. And like, you think it's just this,
it was a little excessive
thing. Yeah, but then you heard guys like Frank Clark talked about it in his press comments. You know, Travis Kelce got fired up about it. I just hate when people do stuff like that. It's just so unnecessary. You're going into the number 1 seed in away game in the highest stakes game you have the entire year. Just be quiet. Just let them win the game, and then you can do whatever you want. Just be quiet till it's over. I just, as soon as I saw that, as a Bengals bettor, I'm sitting there shaking my head. Like, I just hate the spot they're being put in. So.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when someone, like you said, outside the team does that. I mean, it's one thing if a player in the locker room says stupid stuff like that, but I mean, at least he's actually playing on the field. You don't need the mayor stirring the pot here. All right, ready to break down the big game here. We will do side and total first, and we'll run through some player props. Then I have a whole list of obscure props that I would like to give out for the game. So we have Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have been holding steady as a small favorite. It's around -1.5 right now. The over-under is 50.5. The game will be played in State Farm Stadium in Arizona, home of the Cardinals. Injury notes, the Eagles are coming in pretty healthy. Landon Dickerson came out towards the end of the game last week, but he was a full participant in practice today, so he's going to go. Punter Aaron Siposs was activated off IR. He's going to play, and I think Avonte Maddox is also on track to play, so a fully healthy Eagles squad coming in. For the Chiefs, they're pretty banged up. They lost 5 starters during the win over the Bengals last week, or 2 weeks ago. Mecole Hardman has already been ruled out, and then it sounds like the majority of the other guys are probably trending towards playing, but we don't really know yet. Willie Gay, L'Jarius Sneed, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Kadarius Toney, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire was also activated off IR. I'm not really sure how that running back rotation is going to split out, but a couple different Chiefs wide receivers status still up in the air, so we'll have to monitor that here. Do you have a play here on the side or total Chiefs versus Eagles?
Yeah, I grabbed the Eagles at the opener at plus money on the money line. I think now that it's moved to 1.5, I think the spread is right at the current number. I think these are extremely evenly matched teams. We've seen the stat this year. They have even record, exact same amount of points scored, 6 all pros on either team. So this is a matchup that you wanted to see. And I don't think I can fault anyone for betting Patrick Mahomes as a dog again. Jeff, that's to you, but 7-1.
This is not the greatest betting opportunity of his playoff career.
All right, fine. Well, he's 7-1-1 as an underdog against the spread in his career. So anyone who's gonna, give you crap for betting Patrick Mahomes, it's there for you. But I just think the Eagles are much more well-rounded. We've seen what they can do all year. They can score in so many different ways. We've seen them have 4 touchdown games from all different rushers. We've seen AJ Brown, Devontae Smith domination games. And then on the flip side, we've seen things like Hassan Reddick completely disrupt a game, or Darius Slay, James Bradbury just have those shutdown corners. So I really think the Eagles are the more well-rounded team outside of, so you have the quarterback, tight end, and coach. Chiefs have the edge in all those versus the Eagles, I really think, have the edge in every other category, every other position across the field. So it's trying to figure out how you weigh those three of the most important positions versus the rest of the team. I just think the Eagles have been the best team throughout the entire season, regardless of who they played, what they were up against, the different situations that they were in. They just find a way to win these games. And Jalen Hurts just seems so calm, cool, collected throughout all of it. So I like the Eagles in this game. You talked about some of the Chiefs injuries. If they can find a way to really limit Travis Kelce, make Mahomes use these other receivers who can't seem to stay on the field for more than a quarter. We don't know what the run game is going to look like. I really think the Eagles can use their run game to their advantage in this matchup. Hopefully don't have to get Jalen Hurts throwing it 50 times. He really hasn't looked great since his return, hasn't really converted on any of those deep passes like we saw before. So I think really what it comes down to is that Eagles run game, and I don't see the Chiefs being able to stop it. So I like the Eagles on the money line. I didn't have a play on the total though.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I bet the Eagles as well at a little bit better number than there is right now, but I still think like minus 120 on the money line is totally fine. Like you said, I think this game really all boils down to the completeness and overall dominance of the Eagles as a unit, as a full team. I think they have the best roster in the NFL, hands down. They've proved that all season. That compared to the singular greatness of Patrick Mahomes, and we've seen that overcome a lot over the course of his career. I really don't think the Chiefs' weapons on offense are that great, but when you have someone like Mahomes throwing them the ball, you can pretty much make anything happen. But for me, I kind of said this last week, I just feel like if the Eagles can establish the run, really dominate the line of scrimmage and get that run game going, I honestly don't think there's a team on earth that could beat them. We've kind of seen it all year. As long as they don't beat themselves and Sirianni doesn't do stupid things, they don't turn the ball over, I don't think the Chiefs have enough firepower to hang with them. As crazy as that sounds, I know they have Mahomes, but the Chiefs defense has been pretty middle of the pack in run defense. They're 15th on the year, bottom half of the league in adjusted line yards, bottom half of the league in running back line yards. And they're going up against an offensive line unit that they just haven't seen. I know their defensive line got a ton of pressure last week. They forced some sacks. Chris Jones was a monster up the middle, but that's not going to happen this week against Jason Kelce and this Eagles unit. Like, they're just too good. So I just see too many different ways that the Eagles can beat them. That they're better at every position on the field outside of, like you said, quarterback and tight end. So I just think there's too much here for the Eagles. And I think the overall completeness of this team overcomes the singular greatness of Mahomes.
Yeah, and you saw even what the Bucs did against the Chiefs a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, doesn't it feel like that again?
Yeah, it feels like that sort of put I don't want to use the cliche of putting the playbook out on how to beat Mahomes, but they really, going into that game, I know we were all in the Chiefs in that we did not see that coming, and the way they were able to put pressure on him, get him out of the pocket, just kind of off his footing, really made the difference in that game. And it really sets up with, you have the Eagles defensive line being able to do the same thing.
On the total, I am leaning towards the over. I don't think that's a bad bet. It's a pretty high total, but I do think these offenses are going to have success. So I think it's a lean to the over, but probably not a super strong play for me. Do you have any thoughts on like the MVP market? Like, would you look at, obviously we're both on the Eagles. Hurts is the favorite at like plus 130. You can also get like AJ Brown's 18-1, Devontae's around 30-1. Would you look at any of those guys, or is it kind of too spread out where you don't feel like you're getting enough value to make any of those and you just stick with the money line?
Yeah, I think you said it for the Eagles side. We've talked about it all year. It's hard to bet props on the Eagles. It's hard to know where their production is going to come from. And I think you've already seen that so far in these playoffs. Out of the two playoff games that they've gone through, Jalen Hurts would not have been the MVP in either of those games. It probably would have been Reddick last week, and maybe Kenny Gainwell had 130 yards and a touchdown the week before. It could be any of those running backs in that game. It wasn't Jalen Hurts. So I don't find these plus 130, plus 120. Yeah. I don't find that to be valuable enough on trying to pinpoint the Eagles MVP. And same thing with Devontae Smith, AJ Brown. If I'm picking one, I'm going Devontae Smith just because of his price versus AJ Brown. But we haven't really seen a lot of success in the passing game and getting these deep balls. You really don't know what they're going to do with it. So for the Eagles side of things, I'm passing on their MVP, and on the Chiefs side, I think it's Mahomes or Kelce would be the only one that even has a remote chance, in my opinion. What did you think?
Yeah. I totally agree. For the Chiefs side, if you're not betting Mahomes or Kelsey, I think you're basically just lighting money on fire, to be honest. And the Eagles side, like you said, it'd probably just be Devontae Smith if you maybe bet on one of them. I think he's 31-1 on FanDuel, but outside of that, I couldn't really find enough value on anyone. I was looking at Hassan Reddick, but he's down to like 35 or 40-1 in most places. I think that's tough. It's tough to see the Eagles defense just completely shutting out the Chiefs offense. Even if he makes a few plays, I think that the offense will have to be carrying them here. So
I did want to make a case for Miles Sanders, but when I dig deeper into the MVP historical, a running back hasn't won since 1998.
It's crazy.
That was Terrell Davis, who finished with 30 carries, 157 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So like that's what
was that all
to get a performance. And if you think back a couple years ago when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, Mahomes finished with, it was like 260 and he had 3 total touchdowns. And then it was Damian Williams had 130 scrimmage yards, 2 touchdowns, including the game winner.
He was the MVP.
Could have easily been the MVP, but it's Mahomes. The quarterback is naturally going to get majority of the vote for MVP. So I can't find enough value in going outside of that.
Yeah, I think you'd honestly just be better doing, like, if you want to create like a same game parlay of Sanders to have like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, it'll probably pay more and you have a better chance of cashing than him winning MVP at 20-1 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's talk about player props for the game. Do you have any props on the Chiefs or Eagles side that you're eyeing up here that you've already bet?
Yeah, I'll start with the Eagles rushing game. I had a tough time finding Chiefs props, so hopefully you can carry that side. But on the Eagles side, Miles Sanders, I took him over 55.5 rushing yards. I think it's 61.5 now. I'm still all in on that. He's averaging 75 on the season. He's cleared 55.5 in 11 out of 17 games. I think this is an opportunity. He's going to get back to his normal usage where he's really needed in the second half. So in games when the Eagles are either leading or trailing by fewer, or leading by fewer than 7 or trailing, he's handling 79% of the carries. So I think he's going to get a big workload, and I like his over 55.5 rushing. And then I also really like Jalen Hurts over 10.5 attempts. He had 11 versus the Niners, 9 versus the Giants. So on the season, he's cleared this in 47% of the games. But when you break it down to games that were decided by fewer than 14 points, which I have to imagine this game is going to be, he's cleared it in 6 of 9, and the Chiefs have given up the 3rd most quarterback rushing attempts on the season.
Okay, I don't mind that. And you also get, if it is a close game and the Eagles have the ball last, you kneel the ball twice at the end, you get those as rushing attempts rather than if you play the yards, those are negative. So it hurts you in that scenario. I have 2 different ways that I'm playing Miles Sanders here, both at plus money. I want to get your thoughts on them since I know you like him for the game. So Miles Sanders have the most rush yards in the game. I believe you can find this plus 150 on DraftKings right now. Just kind of thinking like, I don't really love any of the Chiefs running backs, especially with Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming into the picture. Like, it's hard to know, are they really going to give a ton of carries to him, McKinnon, or Pacheco? Like, unless either one of them's having like a ton of success, it's probably going to be pretty spread out. And I have to imagine that Sanders is going to get more work than Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell. So I like that one. They also have Miles Sanders, first player to reach 25 rush yards at plus 135, kind of thinking that they normally start the game with a heavier dose of Sanders. And if Gainwell and Boston Scott are rotated in, it's kind of later on into the game. So those are kind of 2 ways that I looked at Sanders in sort of like a better plus money price than just taking the regular yards.
Yeah, I like both of those.
Okay. Unfortunately for the Chiefs, I don't have anything. If you want to play Travis Kelce over yards, like, definitely couldn't fault you. It's kind of tough because it's like, I don't know. It's just, part of me is like, well, the Eagles know that, so they're going to double cover him. But then it's like, well, every team knows that, and Travis Kelce still goes over all the time. So like, I don't know. I just feel like it's a pretty good line. I don't really see a ton of value in it. And then the rest of the Chiefs receivers, I mean, it's just like, who the heck knows? The Eagles are normally most vulnerable in the slots. Like, maybe you look at Juju, but like, he sucked this year. Like, I can't trust him.
And he's just coming back from injury. Like, you can't trust this receiving core. I was all over Kadarius Toney last week too. Got burned on that one really early. Like, I can't bring myself to find the Chiefs receiver who's going to have this one big play. I don't know. And there's not enough. I don't trust Pacheco enough just going against. You said CEH could be back, but going against this Eagles defensive line either way, I don't typically like to play opposing running backs against the Eagles. Has not been kind to me.
Yeah, the only guys on the receiving core that aren't coming in with an injury is Sky Moore and MVS, and they're going to have, at least MVS is going to have the toughest matchup going up against Slay and Bradbury on the outside, and Sky Moore, I mean, they don't really use him that much, so I don't know. All right, ready to get into other more obscure props in the game here?
I did have two quick more normal props on touchdown scores.
Okay.
Sensing a theme here, but I like both Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts to score. Hurts I could find at plus 105. He scored in 11 of 17 games, 7 out of the last 9. Pretty simple. Once they get inside the 10-yard line, so the Eagles throughout the season, 61% of their touchdowns have been scored from inside the 10. When they get inside the 10, 80% of those are rushing touchdowns. Hurts leads the team with 29 carries, Sanders shortly behind him with 28. So I like both of those guys to score a touchdown. Hurts is plus 105, Sanders is plus 120, and he scored in 8 out of 17 games.
Want to know something pretty funny? I bet both of them earlier today.
Let's go.
Not even kidding. We did not discuss this before the show. So clearly we are seeing this game play out in the exact same way. I was looking at the prices. I was just kind of thinking about it in my head. I was like, they're probably both going to be like minus 110, minus 150. But I saw plus 105, plus 120. I was like, you feel like you have to play both
here.
of them.
Agreed.
I feel like worst case, we're hitting one. We're probably hitting both of them. So I'm with you. All right. I'm going to start off with the obscure props here. I'm going to preface this by saying I will give the book and the price that I played it at. These props are all listed differently in different ways on different books. It's kind of a disaster. The prices are moving. So I'm just going to try and give you the best information I can. And then you have to go and find it for yourself and try and see if it matches up with the price that I give out or something close. First play of the game to be a run. Played this at minus 120 on DraftKings. Contrary to what you might think, the Kansas City Chiefs actually love to start the game with an Isaiah Pacheco run right up the middle for some reason. They've done that in both playoff games, and 4 of the last 5 games have been an Isaiah Pacheco run as the first play of the game. Eagles have done this in 3 of the last 5 games. Maybe you try and ease into the game a bit here rather than putting the quarterback back to pass, especially if it's Hurts playing his first career Super Bowl. This is also priced at minus 150 on FanDuel, so I felt like there was some good value on DraftKings at minus 120.
I like it.
All right. You want to give one?
Yes. Let me go with the Eagles over 1.5 fourth down conversions.
You found a 1.5?
So they have the second most conversions, fourth down conversions in the league this year. 22 of 32, which is, what is that, 69%. I like them to go for it a lot. They're a very aggressive team. You know, Sirianni is like that. This Eagles team is like that. You know what they can do on 4th and short with Jalen Hurts sneaking the ball right up the middle. I think they're converting that. It was like 90-something%. I think this is a game you're going to want to be aggressive and keep your foot on the gas if you're in the lead. And if you're playing from behind, you're going to have to take some chances. So over 1.5 fourth down conversions plus 190. I want to say it was on DraftKings.
All right, I'm gonna have to go look for that because I have a similar one, but I was looking for that one because Eagles to convert a fourth down was minus 250, and I didn't really want to pay that. I went with a pretty similar route. I have either team to convert a fourth down attempt from their own territory, which was yes at plus 124 on FanDuel. You can also find the Eagles at plus 300. So basically you convert a fourth down on your own side of the 50. Kind of like you just said, the Eagles led the league with 25 fourth down conversions if you include the playoff games. The Eagles and Chiefs are both top 5 in the NFL with over a 75% fourth down conversion rate on the season if you include the playoffs. And you also kind of get like late in the game if one team's down by 7, maybe they're forced to go for it on their own side of the field, even if it's not a kind of like one that you would see earlier in the game. But I just think 2 more aggressive coaches here. I'm liking really any of the ways that you can capitalize on some of that aggressiveness on fourth downs with Sirianni or Reid here.
Yeah, I like that too.
All right. You have any other random obscure game props? I have a couple more.
I got one more. So I'm going with over 10.5 penalties called in this game at plus 115.
With this stupid crew.
So my initial thought on this is an immediate under, thinking about how the games played out last week, all the attention on the officiating. The Chiefs and the Eagles are both bottom 10 in the league in penalties, so 4.9 and 5.2 for each of them. But when you actually break down this crew, Carl Cheffers is the head ref for this game. His crew over the past 2 seasons has led the league in penalties called, 12.5 in 2022, 13.9 in 2021. The last 10 Super Bowls have averaged 11.4 penalties. And if you go even more recent than that, the last 6 Super Bowls has gone over this 10.5 number in three of those games. 2 of them were ref by Carl Cheffers, in which 2017 he called 13 penalties, and in 2021 he called 15. I'm finding some good value on the plus 115 over 10.5 penalties.
So at the Super Bowl party on Sunday, you're going to be the one guy that's cheering when there's a penalty called, when everyone else is like, "Oh, come on!"
Start. Yes,
I love it. I might have to bet that too. What book was that on?
I saw it on Barstool. That was the only one I noticed it on. But
Barstool. All right, I can hit that. I'll be getting that later today. All right, my next one, I have opening kickoff to be a touchback. I'm going with the no on this one at plus 130. It's been steaming the other way. I think you can actually find a better price than that right now. Since they changed the new kickoff rules, 4 of the last 5 kickoffs in the Super Bowl have not gone for a touchback. In the NFL regular season, this typically happens around 65% of the time where it is a touchback. Jake Elliott and Harrison Butker have a career touchback rate around 65%. So this prop is typically priced like the no would probably be like plus 175 in a normal game. But I think there's a few different circumstances that kind of play into it, which is why I think there's some value. First off, I've heard numerous people comment that the ball that's used for the Super Bowl opening kickoff is like a brand new ball that's never been touched before. It's not broken in, so apparently it doesn't travel as far as a regular ball that's used, which is part of the handicap. And the other one's just kind of like human nature. Like if you're Sky Moore, if you're Boston Scott, you're probably only on the field for what, 5 to 7 plays a game. Maybe you get 1 or 2 carries. Like you're in the Super Bowl and you're catching the opening kickoff. Like you're telling me that you're not going to try and return it unless it's like 8 yards deep in the end zone. Like I think it's kind of just human nature. So this didn't hit last year. That was the only year that it hasn't hit in the Super Bowl since they changed the kickoff rules. But I think plus 130 is a pretty good value here. So I played opening kickoff, no touchback on FanDuel. You can pretty much find this on every book. I think I saw it up to as high as plus 150.
Yeah, I like that. You sold me on that one throughout the week.
I feel like it's one of those that they're just pricing like it's a regular game without kind of looking back at like the history of the Super Bowl specifically.
Yeah, and without looking, you assume in this NFL everyone just catches it and takes the touchback. But
right,
it's a good point about the adrenaline of the game being in the Super Bowl makes it a little different.
All right, I have one more obscure prop, and I think we can get to our long shots and best bets of the week. Let's go with a punter prop. I'm going with Tommy the Boot Townsend to have the longest punt of the game. This is minus 150 on Barstool, Bet Rivers, or Unibet. I know it's minus 150. This is one of my favorite props on the entire board. Tommy Townsend has a freaking cannon for a leg. This is the Pro Bowl representative of the ASC, or he would have been if he wasn't in the Super Bowl. He has a season long of 76 yards and has a 60-plus yard punt in 3 of the last 4 games. He averaged one of the highest net yard averages in the league at 50.4 yards per punt this season. The Eagles have activated punter Aaron Siposs off of IR after dealing with an ankle injury that he suffered back in December against the Giants. Siposs is not a long punter by any stretch of the imagination. He's more of a kind of like pin the team back if you're punting from midfield, better accuracy. Siposs is one of 2 punters in the entire NFL without a 60-plus yard punt of the season. His average is only 45.6 of the year, and if you go back to the games that both these guys have played all season, Townsend would have had a longer punt in 9 of 13 games. And the other thing I kind of like here, we're both on the Eagles. We think they're probably going to win the game. We know Nick Sirianni's been ultra aggressive. The Eagles lead the NFL in 4th down conversions and attempts this season. I think that probably leads to maybe 1 or 2 more punts for Townsend, which is less opportunities for Siposs here. So I just think that this one, I know it's minus 150, but I just think that Townsend is an absolute runaway with this one. I think he's going to boot one.
You're providing a great case to back up this play. I honestly haven't decided if I want to bet my hard-earned money on punters and Tommy
if you're watching the Super Bowl and you don't have a punter prop, what are you doing here? Come on.
Must be doing it wrong.
No, you gotta have one punter prop in the Super Bowl. I remember last year you're on Johnny Mundt over longest punt with me, and we cashed it. It was great.
You're right. You have a good track record on that.
1-0 in Super Bowl punter props. All right, you ready to get to our long shots of the week?
Let's do it.
All right, I will give you the honors. What do you got? Favorite bet priced at plus 200 odds or higher?
I'm sticking with Miles Sanders. I like him to go for it. I think right now, so over 61.5 rushing and to score a touchdown plus 205 on FanDuel. And I bet this earlier in the week, plus 230, but we've already made the case for this. I think there's going to be a lot of usage for Miles Sanders. He's going to get the early game work. If it's close, he's going to stay in there. I gave the stats. He carries 79% of the time when it's a close game. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities. I'm not afraid of this Chiefs defense. They have some good pass rushers, but not as stellar in terms of stopping the run. So I like Sanders to get back into that workhorse role for this Eagles offense. So over 61.5 is his current rushing line, and to score a touchdown on FanDuel is definitely his best touchdown price, plus 205.
Okay, I like it. In Miles Sanders, we trust.
Yeah, let me give another actual off the record play on Sanders, but for him to lead the playoffs in rushing right now, he is plus 600. So right now, the rushing totals for the playoffs is McCaffrey's in the lead at 238.
Right.
Gainwell is 160. Sanders is 132, and Pacheco is 121. So Sanders would need 107 to break that. If you're playing him to get 110 yards, it's plus 580. If you think he's going to have a big game and you're playing for that bust opportunity or that boom opportunity, instead of going for like an MVP, which we think has a much less likelihood of hitting, you could play Miles Sanders to lead the playoffs in rushing at plus 600. Gainwell is 30 yards ahead of him, but Gainwell has only had one game where he's been anywhere close to 80 rushing yards, and it was the one we saw against the Giants, and he had that last second 30-yard run. So he's really not the 100-yard rusher guy, which he would need at least 80 just to pass McCaffrey, and then he would have to beat out Sanders by another 30 there. So
Sanders isn't rushing for 110 while Gainwell also rushes for 80. Like, you're kind of canceling each other out.
So if you want to play the high upside opportunity on Sanders, you can also grab, I saw this on FanDuel, to lead the playoffs in rushing plus 600.
Okay, I like that. I don't think I have too much Miles Sanders exposure. I only bet him like 6 different ways, so I think I can add this one to the portfolio. For my long shot of the week, I'm going to go with an obscure prop here. It's not quite plus 200, but I'm going to weave in a longer shot at the end, so we're going to kind of build on it here. So I'm going to go with over 2.5 players to attempt a pass at plus 160 on FanDuel. This is one of those props that is very unique to the Super Bowl. This is kind of like the opening kickoff touchback. If this was a regular season game, this is probably like plus 350, plus 400. You don't really see a ton of trick plays where opposite or players not named the quarterback throw a pass. However, I think it should be priced much closer to a 50-50 proposition. Trick plays are way more common in the Super Bowl. If you look back to last year's game, we saw Cooper Kupp attempt a pass, and Joe Mixon actually threw like a 20-yard touchdown pass to T. Higgins down by the red zone. This prop has hit 5 times of the last 10 Super Bowls, which kind of bodes more credence into my theory that it should probably be priced closer to a pick'em. And the other thing, that the way that it's worded, it's just 2.5 players to attempt a pass. It doesn't say anything about it not being a quarterback. So we have 2 quarterbacks. I think they're probably going to be pretty healthy coming into this game. But if Mahomes does roll an ankle and Chad Henne has to come in for one play, that counts as well. If Gardner Minshew comes in backup duty, that counts as well. So all we need is any 2.5 or any 3 players who attempt a pass. And then if you want to make it a real long shot, any non-quarterback to throw a touchdown, 22-1 on DraftKings. Just mentioned this happened last year. Maybe we see another Philly special 2.0. Maybe Sirianni's been cooking something up as kind of an ode to Doug Peterson and the Nick Foles Super Bowl era. So I'm just saying, plus 160 for over 2.5 players to attempt it. If you want to get really crazy, 22-1, any non-quarterback to throw a touchdown. My long shot of the Super Bowl.
I looked at that too. I do like that play, especially with the angle of both quarterbacks are banged up. You mentioned if Mahomes has to come out for a play, we've seen what happens when Hurts kind of gets up gimpy on some of these rush attempts that he has. It's not out of the realm of possibility that a backup quarterback has to come in just for a couple plays outside of the opportunity that already exists with these trick plays. And I'm still waiting. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but how many times this season have the Eagles lined up for that 4th and inches push? And I'm just waiting for them to drop back on one of these or do a trick play and
have the 2 guys behind him spray out to the side.
Yeah, right. It has to happen one of these times. I'm really just waiting for it. And I mean, they're converting at 90%. So am I really going to fault them for it? But it's just such a prime opportunity to do something like that. So I like the play. That's a good call.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think that scenario would necessarily help this play, but I agree with you. Every time I watch it, I'm like, that this could be the one where it's a fake. All right. Favorite bet of the week for the Super Bowl. Don't disappoint us. What do you have?
I'm sticking with the player prop of Jalen Hurts over 10.5 rushing attempts.
Really? That's your favorite one of the week?
I really like it. Like I said, he's cleared it in
6
of 9 games where it's decided by 14 or fewer points. He has at least 9 rush attempts in 13 out of his 17 starts. So already you're starting off with getting out on a good leg.
9 is less than 10.5.
I understand that, but I'm saying so already 9 in 13 out of 17. You think this is going to be a close game. You think the pass rush is going to get to him a little bit where he's going to have to scramble out on some of these. And a lot of these games, he doesn't need to scramble. He's comfortable back in the pocket, handing the ball off a lot of these second halves. He's still be able to hit this prop. I mentioned the Chiefs are allowing the 3rd most quarterback rush attempts per game. So I like the Eagles to dial some stuff up for Jalen Hurts. They don't seem to be afraid to run him. Even last week in that second half, there was an entire drive. I think he must have had 6 carries versus the Niners. He came up gimpy. Everyone's kind of holding their breath. And then they gave it to him 2 more times on the goal line. So I gave the goal line stats as well. When they get in the red zone, especially within the 10, him and Sanders, but especially Hurts, is the guy. He's going to get some of those carries. And it's not like the Eagles aren't going to be able to control the clock a little bit. They're going to have plenty of time of possession, I think. So I really like it of Jalen Hurts over 10.5 rush attempts.
Okay, I'm surprised this is your favorite one, but I like the conviction. I like the confidence. I think the breakdown makes some sense. For my favorite bet of the week, I'm going to go with yet another obscure prop. This is my favorite bet on the board.
Don't say punters, please.
No, we already gave out the punter one. If that one wasn't minus 150, that may have been my favorite, but I can't give out a minus 150 play as my favorite play. I am going to go with the 3rd quarter to be higher scoring than the 1st quarter at minus 125 on DraftKings. Your face looks like you like this one already. All right, so 3rd quarter points scored over 1st quarter points scored. A tie is a push, so it's just like the money line, minus 125 on DraftKings. If you can't find this prop listed at your book, it is on FanDuel. The price is a little bit higher, but I don't mind 3rd quarter total over 10 points at minus 105 on FanDuel or Caesars. I think that's fine as well. Here's the breakdown for the play. In the regular season, the 1st and 3rd quarter scoring is pretty much even. I think the 3rd quarter is slightly higher. However, in the Super Bowl, there's a few different dynamics, and I think that the books are just kind of pricing this as if it's a regular season game again, and not really taking into account all the outside factors of the Super Bowl. So I went back and looked at the box scores of the last 14 Super Bowls. I didn't just pick a random number that supported my case. ESPN only had hyperlinks to the box scores for the last 14 games, so that was my cutoff point. In the last 14 Super Bowls, the 1st quarter has only averaged 7.6 points scored per game, while the 3rd quarter averages 12.3. So almost 5 points higher per game. This prop is 10-2-2 for the 3rd quarter over the last 14 seasons and 4-0-1 in the last 5 Super Bowls. And if you kind of think about the way that the game plays out, I think that teams are a little bit more cautious on the first drive of the game, maybe the second drive of the game. They're kind of settling in. They're going with a little bit more conservative play calling, get out all the jitters and the pregame nerves. And then the thing about the halftime show is that it actually gives team a little bit more time to prepare for the second half. So like, yes, the defense gets to prepare too, but I think maybe some of these offensive adjustments are getting made at halftime where they have a 40-minute break between halves instead of the regular 15 minutes that they get. So maybe it just gives a little bit more credence to the 3rd half being higher scoring. The stats back it up here. So I just find a ton of value in this one at minus 125. I think it's one where the books are just pricing it like it's a regular season game and not really realizing this has been absolutely smashing the 1st quarter scoring over the recent history in the Super Bowl.
All right. I think I'm more surprised at your play than you have to be at my play, but it's a good argument to back it up. I don't have much rebuttal on that one. It's just a surprising play, but I don't have anything to go against it. So
all right.
Minus 125 on DraftKings, you said?
Yes, sir.
All right.
3rd quarter. And if you want to get crazy, you can also play 3rd quarter to be the highest scoring quarter of the game at plus 600. Now, it's obviously tough. 2nd and 4th quarter normally dominate that, but there have been some in the last few years where the 3rd quarter was the highest scoring. So I played some on that as well.
All right.
I have one more. I forgot to give out a kicker prop. I feel like I need to give out a kicker prop since I gave out a punter prop.
The floor is yours.
All right, last one before we get out of here. The shortest made field goal of the game. Now, I actually bet the wrong side of this initially because it's worded very confusing that it messes your brain up. So you want to bet the over on the shortest field goal made of the game to be over 27.5 yards. So basically what you're saying is no field goal will be made shorter than 28 yards. We're taking the over. And the idea is that essentially you're saying is any team going to kick a field goal inside the 10-yard line. And basically my premise for this is these are two aggressive coaches. We know, like, I can't imagine Nick Sirianni kicking a field goal from the 5-yard line unless there's like 2 seconds left in the game. Like, maybe it could happen, but I just think that's pretty unlikely knowing the aggressiveness of these coaches. Harrison Butker is 10-5 to the over on this prop this season. He's also made a career low 75% of his field goals this year, so I'm not sure how much the Chiefs necessarily trust him, even though he was good last week against the Bengals. And then Jake Elliott 14-4 to the over on this when he's started this season. So I'm thinking that there's not going to be a ton of short field goals made in this game. So I'm playing the shortest field goal of the game over 27.5 yards.
I looked into that one as well. I do like that.
All right.
The kicker and the punter seal of approval here.
Yeah, I mean, you have something to root for in every single play. We have the kickoff, the punter, the kicker, the game. I mean, it's just like no matter what's happening, penalties, no matter what's happening, you're rooting for something in the game.
All right.
This is how you watch a Super Bowl right here. I think we covered this game from all angles. Do you have anything left to say, or did we thoroughly cover this one?
No, I think we covered all angles of this one. I'm expecting an awesome back and forth matchup. I can't see either of these teams blowing the other one out, no matter how good the Eagles have looked this year, no matter how good Patrick Mahomes looks all the time. I think this is really going to be an awesome back and forth game to cap off another incredible NFL season. And thanks as always for having me on.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Absolutely. I mean, the Eagles, I feel like I want them to win and I want all my bets to win, but like, I feel like I really want to see a game where they're absolutely pushed and they, this kind of goes down to the wire and the Chiefs give them everything they can handle and we'll see who comes out on top. So hopefully we get that as football fans and we can all enjoy it. Thank you everyone out there for tuning in and joining us every week of the season. We loved having you. We love doing it. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at BetRightPod. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Check out the YouTube video on our YouTube page at BetRightPod. You can watch Dave wear a beautiful paper bag for the first few minutes of the show that he well deserved. Rue will pay his end of the bargain next season when we are back with our off-season podcast in July. Until then, from Jeff and Dave, we are the Bet Right Sports Betting Podcast, because every time you bet with us, you bet right.